You can't have that mentality and not tell me you're not actively being exploited. Your mental real estate is being mined like the cobalt slave mines that come out of Africa to make the phones and the equipment that you're using to listen to the show right now. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Sheep Get Sheared Podcast. I'm your host, Austin Creed, and my friends, you know, this whole show, if you've listened to it once or twice, themes of the show are around understanding how you're being exploited. The name of the show is about how your resources are being taken, how you are being taken advantage of, and how it doesn't just happen once. It happens over and over and over again. Case in point, today's topic. We're talking about the top 5 ways that you're being exploited. And I'm not going to just give you some really stupid list. I really want this to... I'm not going to have all kinds of effects and stuff today. I really want you to sit back. And I want you to think about this. I want you to really digest mentally what I'm going to give you. There's a lot. I guarantee you, at a couple points throughout the show, we're going to have emotional reactions. You're going to have political reactions. You're going to have religious reactions. And you're going to have those knee-jerk, instinctual reactions. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's normal. But one of the reasons why the show is built on exploitation and understanding how you're being exploited and how you're being lied to is because a lot of people make a lot of money off lying. Case in point, our first example. Number 1, big tech, informational exploitation. The reason why I have this one at number 1 is because this is the most overlooked. For example, did you guys know that your data is actively harvested by certain companies who sell your information? Maybe you know that and you're proactive. Maybe you didn't know that and you thought stuff was actually free. No, stuff is never free. Law 40, the 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene says the following. It says, learn to despise the free lunch. The reason you should despise the free lunch is because it's either a trap or it is trash, in plain English. And the idea of free is a lie on top of it all. When we look at the social media algorithms, when we look at the fact that everything that's fed to us is fed to us for a reason. It is fed to us because it has an agenda of its own. It wants you to think something, to react in a certain way, or to actively extract something from you. Money, information, these are all assets that are worth money. And the world revolves around power, and the most obvious example of power is money. And so you, my friend, are a commodity. Your information, your energy, your attention, your time, these are all assets that are being monopolized by big tech, mainly the pirates in Silicon Valley, in my opinion. Oh, pirates? Oh, how could you call them pirates? They don't wear eye patches and have hooks for hands. No, they don't need to. They just have tons of people on working visas and they actively pull the hook up from you like fly fishers, promising you great jobs with great pay, great benefits, while giving it to people for less. You might say it's capitalism. I say that's crypto capitalism. Crypto means hidden, in case you didn't know. That's why cryptocurrency means hidden currency, in case you didn't know it. But let's go to number 2. Anybody want to guess number 2 is? Number 2 is financial exploitation. In other words, the big lie about the 9-to-5 job. Now, here's the thing. One of the biggest lies of all time was the American dream. And what I mean by that is not that you could achieve some fictional dream. No, the lie was that you could work for the man. You could work for the boss. You could work for big tech. You could work for big pharma. You could work for big ag. You could work for these juggernauts we call corporations. And I'm not talking about the mom and pop shops. I'm talking about the big companies, the Fortune 500 top of the list who have billionaires running them. Multi-billionaires at that. The 9-to-5 lie was the biggest scam of my generation, the millennials, the boomers, the Gen Xers. The big lie was a 9-to-5, that if you just sit back and you think, oh, I'm going to get this nice corporate job. I'm going to sit back and have a great old time, and it's not going to be an issue. I'm going to slowly work up the ladder, and before I know it, I'm going to be living large, have the 2.5 kids, the Cocker Spaniel, the hot wife, stay-at-home wife at that, the picket fence, the suburb house. Let me tell you something. Those days are over. Over! They're never coming back. Reason being, the economy sucks. The economy is straight garbage. And if you think it's not, you probably aren't working, or you're probably so well off that you don't even care anymore.
This is the worst kind of discrimination. The kind against me.
And you're probably sounding like Bender, meaning like, no, it's not me. It couldn't possibly. Well, I'm sorry, but guess what? When you look at the traditional work system and how it was set up to benefit the people on top, let me tell you something. Let's take the example of the secretary who works for the CEO. How much work do you think that she does that's menial, or he does, most of the time when it's a woman? How many times do you think that she does all these menial jobs, does menial work? It has value, sure. But the reason why someone else is hired to do something is because someone else would rather focus on more important, worthwhile things. So if you're one of those people who keeps saying that the rent's just too damn high, the food prices are too high, I can't move up the ladder, the glass ceiling, whatever, this is why, because you weren't told that with risk comes reward proportion to the risk you take. And speaking of risks, one of the biggest frauds is number 3, and it comes to how you're being exploited in relationships. And so when we talk about relationships and the truth about women, the truth about the dynamics between men and women, the reason you're being exploited is because ever since you were a kid, yeah, we going way back to when you were a kid, you were lied to.
You lied to me.
You were lied to because you weren't necessarily told the truth, and you were actively fed a fantasy, a script that does not align with reality, and instead is basically out of one of Walt Disney's movies from the 50s. Snow White, Sleeping Beauty, you name it. He even has a whole song in Sleeping Beauty about Once Upon a Dream, talking about Aurora and her dream man, about how she'd meet him, and it was like they'd known each other forever. I know, I already know you because I dreamed you up, and you're this wonderful perfection incarnate individual, and you're here to save me. You're here to be this perfect person that I want you to be. See, you hear people on the internet, both on the woman's side, like the feminist side, and the manosphere side, which are the two more, I'd say, extreme ends, but I don't think a lot of stuff in the manosphere is necessarily extreme. I think it just sounds extreme to people because they've been told the exact opposite. They've been told that if you build this attraction over time, you put in this work, you do this, you say that, before you know it, you're building this unbreakable bond, irregardless of the fact that if you ask the most conservative normies in the world, they'll say that the divorce rate's 50%. It's actually higher than that because the way they gather the data measures who gets married that year divided by who gets divorced that year. It has nothing to do with whether it's the same people who got married or divorced. It has to do with the fact that how many marriages divided by subtract minus the divorces, and there you have the rate. And to me, incredibly disingenuous. And that's why you have to read studies. And that's why I'm telling you you're being exploited. I talk about this at length on this show, about relationships, women, men. And I get flack for it. Make no mistake about it. You don't think I get flack from people in my life who listen to the show, who know me, who've known me for a long time? They're like, how could you say these things about women, about men, about religion, about politics? How could you say these things? And I say, because they're true. I don't say things just to be a shock jock. I say things because they're true. The only reason you might think it's a shock jock moment is because it is shocking to you, because you didn't know it. You've never heard this before. You have no idea what's going on. You're being exposed to something that is shocking your current belief system, and so you think it's me being a provocateur. or guys in the space, guys who love the show, guys who comment after every single episode of the show, adding to the conversation. This is why we do it. We don't do it because we're bitter. We don't do it because we're hurt. We do it because we're passionate about helping other people to avoid the pitfalls, the traps, and the displeasurable circumstances that we found ourselves in. It's that simple. 4, let's move on to the next thing. Otherwise, I'm going to be talking about this for the next 2 hours. Number 4, the political exploitation, the Swiss cheese. Oh, that's right. I put this down in my notes. The reason I use the analogy of Swiss cheese is if you picture a Swiss cheese slice, there's holes all in it, right? Well, that's when we look at the rhetoric of politicians. Those holes are the lies that are being poked in there, that if you are paying attention and you're looking at it, you can see it. Otherwise, if you're just eating the burger, if you're just eating it up, you're not going to notice it because you're too busy tasting exactly what they want you to taste. You're not looking at what they're putting in the shit sandwich that you're eating. You don't want to hear it. You don't want to look. Reason being, because number 1, you have better things to do in your mind. And 2, because you want it to be true. To believe them because are total likable individuals and you want them to be right. When in reality, they're not right. No one's right 100% of the time. Not me, not your favorite politician, entertainer, actor. Nobody's 100% right. But when we look at the political spectrum, when we look at the fact that the left is going to the left, the right is coming to the left, when we look at the fact that we are just being exploited by the system. Is anybody paying attention to this election? The one that's coming up right now. I got to give a shout out. I know that there's no way they listen to the show because the show is not that big yet. But when I look at guys like Steven Crowder and the Crowder Gang, when I look at how on Rumble, because of their Bug Club, shout out to them, they did a great piece on investigative journalism where they found the COVID czar in New York City. And they caught him on a live tape talking about how he was having orgies when the lockdowns were in effect. You couldn't see your grandma. You couldn't go to work. You couldn't do jack crap. It's unbelievable. But of course, the people who want to believe the unbelievable because they like the way it sounds, they like the way it feels, they like the way that stuff like that comes about, they will ignore reality to embrace the fantasy if they just believe it hard enough. But if for this, but if for that, if only this was happening, if only that didn't happen, then it might come true. You can't have that mentality and not tell me you're not actively being exploited. Your mental real estate is being mined like the cobalt slave mines that come out of Africa to make the phones and the equipment that you're using to listen to the show right now. Oh yeah, you didn't know that? Oh yeah, in the Congo, they have cobalt slave mines. Oh yeah, just like Nike has allegedly Chinese slave markets, basically the sweatshops in China. Oh yeah, guess what? That's what people don't want to hear about. They just want to wear the shoes and be cool. They just want to look at who they endorse or where the money's going and be cool with it. They want to look cool, sound cool, be accepted. They don't want to do this type of work. People don't want good medicine. They want sugary medicine. They want the medicine that tastes like cotton candy, that tastes like grape, that tastes good. They don't want the medicine that's going to taste all bitter and gross, but actually heal their bodies, heal their minds. They don't want it. Why? Because that requires work. It requires admitting that you might be wrong. Speaking of admitting wrong, we're going to get into ruffling some feathers now if you haven't been ruffled already. You ready for it? I know you're thirsting for it. Number 5, religious exploitation and the cherry picking that is done in the church. Oh my goodness. Oh, I know people are going to get mad about this one. Let me tell you right now. I'm not just talking about Christians. I'm not just talking about Muslims, Jews, Hindus, Buddhists, no spiritual Wiccans. No, I'm talking about everybody. When you look at the fact that religion is being weaponized by so many people who are paraphrasing, focusing on legalities, adjusting for the times, manipulating people because they want to go viral, let me tell you something. Morality is the biggest scam going. And let me tell you why I say that. Because when things are done in the name of morality, so let's take, for example, what example do I want to choose? Let's take prostitution as an example. I'm not here to make a moral judgment about it. It's been a necessary evil probably since the beginning of recorded human history. That's why people call it the oldest profession. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that we should have it necessarily. I'm saying that we had it in the past as a way to prevent the very problems we are currently experiencing, but you don't want to hear that. Why? Because it doesn't sound good. Oh, your pastor wouldn't say that, even though in the South, and a couple generations ago, the pastor would have night workers in the back of the church to get more money. Ooh, you didn't know that. Ooh, no, Austin, they wouldn't do that. They're nice people. They're men of God. They would never do that. Sorry, but they did. And you know what, my friends? This is what I'm talking about. We need to stop thinking about morality, and we need to start thinking about the actual message we are sending and how it is molding the minds of the masses. A lot of M words. I understand that. But when we think about the biggest problems in our society, and they vary depending on who you are, where you're from, and what you believe, I get that. When we look at the biggest problems, especially for men, the biggest problems are the marriage system, taxes, the agendas that are actively trying to tell us that we are not as good as the women, we're not as good as certain minority groups, or that we're not as good as the immigrants, or we're not as good as whoever, and we need to step aside and let them come in and take our jobs, take the women, take the opportunities, and we need to sit back and let it happen. I say no. I don't care if you're black, white, Asian, Hispanic, Indian, Pacific Islander, I don't care, it doesn't matter. What matters is we are being exploited. We are being fleeced in plain English. And so when we look at the fact that our churches are preaching men to be weak, because apparently now weakness is strength, when in days gone by, we had conquistadors, we had crusaders, we had men who had holy orders to defend the church and their principles. Now we have people saying that we should just wife up single mothers and that's a good thing. Now we have people saying that, oh, we need to forgive this and not hold this accountable because it's more women than men are going to church for the very reason we're talking about right now. You think men are going to go into church and be told that they're no good, that they need to do this, need to wife up, they didn't do that? Anybody who's black, who's been in the black church, huge single mother problem in the black church. There's a big problem about single mothers, period, but especially in the black church. The stepdaddy era is going the way of the dinosaurs. Why? Because they're waking up to realizing that it is not what you thought it was. Do some people benefit from it? Yes. Is it the guy? No. And a lot of times, the wounds are self-inflicted. The widows are the only people who I might have some sympathy for because that isn't necessarily their fault. Whereas the other ones are self-inflicted. I'm not going to feel sorry for you, and nobody else should, in my opinion, because the crocodile tears are real, gentlemen, and you need to be aware of it. You need to be aware of people who try to feign ignorance. Oh, I don't know what's happening. Oh, I don't know that I'm being exploited.
I love the poorly educated.
I don't know that the political system is largely a farce. I should maybe just not try at all. No, I disagree with that. Because that's just accepting it for what it is. And not trying to at least protect yourself. And if I need to be like Thanos, then I'll act like Thanos. And I'll say that I need to do it of course my OBS now crashed on me, but we're back. That was odd, and I'm honestly kind of mad about it.
Oh, hell no!
But you know what? We're gonna finish a show anyway. You know what really makes me sad is that a lot of people would rather listen to commentary about their sports teams and focus on the bread, circuses, and the sirens of our time. And I don't mean police sirens. I mean the sirens that tempted men to their graves and ate them alive, that runs from Greek mythology. People would rather focus on bread, circuses, and sirens, the OF girls, instead of focusing on the problems at hand that directly affect their life, any kids they have's lives, and the lives of the people that they love. They'd rather focus on the things that don't matter, that matter in the moment, instead of mattering for the next millennium. That's what they care about. And I don't want you to be one of those people. I want you to see things for how they are. And I want you to then decide what you want to do about it. You're going to be a fatalist, or you're going to be out there, instead of a defeatist, you're going to be someone who wants to make a difference. Not while losing your understanding of reality, but using it to craft the world, using it to build the life you want for yourself without losing touch. As Rudyard Kipling said, if you can walk with kings and keep the common touch, then you will be a man, my son. You must keep this mentality if you want to succeed. Otherwise, you risk becoming the very thing you mock and the very thing you sought to destroy. And I don't want that for any of you who listen to the show. If anything you want to add to the conversation, please do. Comment section's wide open for you. In the meantime, take care of yourselves. Really think about how you want to interpret the data you've been given today. Take care of yourselves. I'm out of here. Peace.